So this is maybe a slightly different style episode than I'm used to, because there has been a single dominant evolving story over the course of the last 2 weeks. And I've been following it. And I think moving from the every week to 2 week format gives me the opportunity to follow a story longer and then get sort of more in depth, or at least more of the steps, more of the evolution of the story, which I'm enjoying. So this took up, like, my little notebook is like 6-7 pages of just this one story, because it's between a comment made by Takaichi, the new prime minister of Japan, something she said, and it offended another state, and that other state is China. Back at the beginning, what happened was Takaichi said, if an armed attack occurs on a sovereign nation that has a close relationship with Japan, Japan can exercise its right to self-defense. Now, Takaichi is one of the politicians in Japan who's trying to redefine what self-defense means. So a year, maybe 2 years ago, I actually talked about Takaichi. She said, how do we define self-defense? Because if we shoot missiles from Japan all the way to North Korea, but we don't actually go to North Korea, isn't that self-defense? And a lot of people would go, no, that's shooting missiles at people. That's very aggressive and not self-defense-y at all. But she's sort of an old school Japanese person. She's very conservative. She's trying to redefine the Constitution, or the interpretation of the Constitution. It's happening in a lot of countries right now, to try to make it so that she can kind of do what she wants, but still claim to be supporting the Constitution. There is a little place called Taiwan, and Taiwan falls under these conditions. Japan and Taiwan have very close relationships. Taiwan has actually set up a couple of chip building plants, computer chips, not the tasty kind, computer building chips, semiconductor chips, factories in Japan. And this is actually to offset China having this sort of monopoly on chip creation in the world. The problem is some people don't consider Taiwan a sovereign nation. So there's your first problem, where Takaichi says sovereign nations that are friendly with Japan, if they're threatened, we'll stand up for them. That'll be part of our self-defense. But if you don't consider Taiwan a sovereign nation, you're already making a very strong political statement, let's say. Many people told her to just retract her statement. So, my favorite is that when a politician retracts their statements, that of course makes the statement disappear. It was never said in the first place. But this is an act of contrition. This is like, you said something, you've made China upset. Undo it, say you're sorry, say you misspoke, say something and make it go away. And Takaichi refused to do that. Now, I don't know whether I agree. I actually don't know enough about it. This is sort of out of the scope of my knowledge. But not backing down, like saying something and not backing down, is something I have some respect for. So I don't know necessarily whether I agree with Takaichi or not on this one issue. But I do know that when someone says something and then they stand by it, that at least means that you can believe what they're saying going forward. So I'm still really torn on Takaichi. I'm not conservative. I don't believe or enjoy the conservative interpretation of a lot of the things that Takaichi would do. But at least in this case, it's like when Takaichi says she's going to do something, I think she might actually do it. So that's a good thing. This is where I'm torn. We just don't have enough politicians in the world where you can actually believe they're going to do or stand by the things they say. They'll just back down right away. Then we get to the next day, and this is when stuff started to really kick off. A Chinese diplomat said, "The dirty head that sticks itself in must be cut off." Now, I don't speak Chinese. I don't read Chinese. I have to rely on other people's translations of Chinese to know if this is the right thing. Because I actually saw about 4 or 5 articles, and they all had slightly different wordings or interpretations of the actual statement. But the post was later deleted. So the politician, the commenter who said this thing that, basically we should cut off the dirty neck of Takaichi, was like, maybe that was a little bit too much. So they deleted it. But of course, the internet is forever. You put anything on the internet, it's not actually going away. Taiwan said, Taiwan takes seriously the threatening remarks made by the Chinese officials towards Japan. So a Chinese official made a statement saying we're going to cut off the head, or we should cut off the head. Probably the person who said we should cut off the Japanese prime minister's head meant it metaphorically, like we need to stop this behavior. But you still just did make an accusation or a statement that you were going to cut off someone's head. Taiwan, a representative of Taiwan, said, we take this seriously. Chinese officials shouldn't be saying this stuff about Japanese officials. Takaichi then says, Her remarks were hypothetical and would refrain from similar comments in the future. Now, this is not a retraction. That I found very interesting. Takaichi says that her remarks were hypothetical and would refrain from similar comments in the future. Now, the similar comments in the future is not a retraction. She's like, okay, look, China's upset that I said if you attack Taiwan, we would help Taiwan out. And Taiwan's like, hey, China, back down. And then China's like, hey, you can't talk about me like that. Taiwan's part of us. We are one China. It's the one China policy. A lot of countries actually have that. Takaichi said, look, I won't say this stuff in the future, but at the same time, didn't say she changed her mind. She didn't say she doesn't believe it. She didn't retract her statement. So again, this is, to me, the good point of Takaichi is she's saying what she thinks what she says, and she stands by it. Someone named Jue, I am going to butcher any Chinese words in here, names, I apologize. Path of death that only some stupid politician in Japan would choose. So again, pretty strong statement that the path is stupid, that what you said was stupid, and only a Japanese person would be dumb enough to say something like this. We just need to chop off their dirty heads without a moment of hesitation. So this is, again, not a different statement. This is the original statement of we need to cut off their dirty necks. We need to cut off their heads. And this is the problem with me not speaking every language on the planet, or at least not all the ones involved, because I speak English. My Japanese is passable, but there's no way I'm reading any Japanese at a high level. I don't speak any Chinese. So it's very difficult for me to interpret this. I have to rely on other people. And then as I go through articles, I see multiple versions of the same statements. China then, the next day, demands retraction of the egregious remarks, and Japan must bear all the consequences of the things said. Should Japan dare to interfere militarily in the Taiwan Strait situation, it will constitute an act of aggression, which is true. If China did something towards Taiwan and then Japan sent the military to Taiwan, that would be an act of aggression. I actually think that's a pretty fair statement. The problem is, again, Takaichi was talking hypothetically. If China were to invade or send its military to try to take over the local government in Taiwan, Japan would feel Taiwan is so close to Japan that we might have to intercede or help or support the Taiwanese government. That's a problem. The Chinese broadcaster, CCTV, so this is the Chinese national television, so it's state-run media, said that Takaichi is a troublemaker and she will pay the price if she spews shit without boundaries. So when you have like a government entity using like dirty language, like shit and stuff, that in itself is already, you can see how angry they must be. China summoned the Japanese ambassador. So the Japanese ambassador has to go to the government in China and then explain the situation. China then urged people not to visit Japan. So they're now in this situation where they're like, hey, the Japanese prime minister said something, they've pissed us off, nobody go to Japan. Thing is, in a place like China, a bunch of Chinese people are like, yeah, okay, we're not going to go to Japan. This goes back to a singular issue, though. And the singular issue is Taiwan part of China? So America has a one China policy. I know that. Trump's first, I think it was in his first term, back in like 2016, he accepted his first congratulatory phone call from the Taiwanese prime minister, which is something he should not have done because America has a one China policy, which means if he's going to accept a call from China, he needs to accept that call from the Chinese president, not someone from Taiwan. So by taking the phone call from the prime minister of Taiwan, he was actually acknowledging that the Taiwanese prime minister is actually an entity and therefore valid in the eyes of the world. Now, Trump didn't know any of that. No one took any time to explain Chinese politics or American politics, foreign policy towards China to him. He doesn't even know what the one China policy is. Japan in 1972 fully understands and respects China's position that Taiwan is an inalienable part of its territory. So Japan officially as a government recognizes a one China policy as well. So the official position of Japan as a country is that Taiwan is part of China. But almost no Japanese politicians behave like it is. And then they said China should withdraw its call for people to avoid Japan. So that China's like, hey, citizens, Japan sucks, don't go there. And then Japan's like, hey, Nuh-uh, we're kind of awesome. Don't do that. You shouldn't do that. Chinese airlines, in response to this, canceled or changed Japan-bound flights at no charge. So if you have a trip booked to Japan and you want to cancel, no cancellation fee. Or if you want to change it to a different country, no fee to change your ticket. So like again, most of these are state-run companies. So they're not like going to disagree with what the government says. On November 16th, so this is like, again, now we're getting days and days and days further. The Chinese Education Ministry said, think carefully about studying in Japan. They have poor public security. Now, Japan, I think, is very famous, a very safe country. Japan has very good public security. Japan is not a violent country. Like, I do stories on Ninja News Japan. Barely any of them involve massive amounts of violence or any serious amount of violence because it's just such a peaceful country. It's mostly dirty pervs or just weird stories or people just being rude. Then Hong Kong comes out and says, since mid-2025, there has been an increasing trend of attack incidents against Chinese citizens in Japan. So Chinese people visit Japan, and the number of attacks on those people has gone up since mid-2025. This is completely not true. Like, the actual Japanese police, I think it was the Tokyo Metropolitan Police, went and released their statistics to show that the number of attacks on Chinese citizens has actually gone down every single year. I mean, it's barely any, there's not that many attacks. Like I just said, Japan's a very peaceful country, but the amount of attacks that have happened towards Chinese people has not only been very small, it's actually gone down over time. It has been estimated that 500,000 air tickets were canceled. So it went from 1.5 million people who intended to visit Japan, dropped to 1 million people. Japan then, again, this is a tit for tat kind of situation. Japan then warns visitors going to China that China is very dangerous. Please be careful. Chinese people might get angry and attack you because of this whole situation. The Chinese Foreign Ministry then said they would protect foreign visitors in accordance with the law. Now, that's not saying they're going to go out of their way. But again, I guess you're not asking the police to go out of the way. You're asking the police to actually just do their job. So that's fine. But yeah, again, they're just doing the same thing. Like they're saying, oh, more people are attacking people in Japan. Oh yeah, well, more people are going to attack Japanese people in China. Shut up. Chinese media then leaked a picture of the Japanese foreign minister bowing to the Director General of Asian Affairs, and the image went viral. So I saw this image. It was the Chinese dude has his hands in his pockets. He's looking very relaxed, and the Japanese guy's bowing towards him, and they made it seem like he was trying to like, you know, curry favor, or he was like bowing an apology, and then all these people were interpreting what that means. Now, the thing is, I've lived in Asia for a long time. Japanese people, and I actually bet Chinese people, they bow to each other constantly. Like when you're saying stuff, when you're being polite, this is the Japanese foreign minister. He probably bows every 10 seconds. It's just like an instinct. I've actually watched people on the phone with their phone talking to someone else, and they start bowing to the person on the phone. The person can't see them, but it's just instinctual. It happens. Taking this picture completely out of context means nothing. But again, this is just adding a little more fuel to the fire so they could get more people more upset about Chinese-Japanese relations. China, now this is actually when it gets big. China then bans all seafood imports. Only a few months ago, China actually eased the restrictions over the Fukushima treated water being released. So basically in Japan, there's some dirty water from Fukushima, and they were releasing it in tiny amounts into the ocean, hoping it would disperse, and it seemed to be safe. China's like, don't do that. We don't like that. We're not buying any of your fish anymore. Then they're like, a few months ago, they're like, look, you know what? Relations have improved significantly. Let's take some of your fish. And people in Japan were like, great, because China is a massive market. We want to sell all our fish to China. Then this happens, and they're like, we're not buying your fish anymore. China is usually 1/5 of Japanese fish exports. The Taiwanese president, I said prime minister earlier, sorry. It's often quite easy to get confused with president and prime minister. Leader. The Taiwanese president then, this was about 2-3 days ago, sat down and said, today's lunch is sushi and miso soup. So this was his version of showing support for Japan. So he's like, look, China's angry at you. China's not buying your fish, but guess what? I'm eating sushi today. I'm having miso soup. So he's basically saying thank you for the support you're showing us in the face of China and all the anger you've been receiving, which is kind of a nice gesture. He's not in a position where he can say anything too blunt or too forcefully. And this is actually, again, the more diplomatic way to do it. Takaichi was speaking hypothetically, so you could take that into account, but China just doesn't like have anyone saying like, we might attack you. which I also get. Like, I wouldn't want, like, if I was in my office and then someone sitting at the desk is like, if Peter stood up too quickly, like, I'd shoot him. I'd be like, whoa, dude, what are you saying that for? Don't say that. And that would make me upset. I get it. The Taiwan foreign minister then urged people to visit Japan. So they were saying, look, all 500,000 Chinese people aren't going to come to Japan to visit. Guess what? Taiwanese going to pick up the slack. And then Malaysia comes in and they goes, look, guess what? Malaysia's going to come in and pick up the slack. Guess what? A bunch of other sort of Asian countries around the area were like, oh, you're having a little spat with China? We have little spats with China in the past as well. We'll visit your country to make up the numbers. They actually referred to tourists as being fungible. So you might lose some here, but you could pick some up somewhere else. Taiwan then lifted the import restrictions. So they're saying, like, now we're going to import more stuff from Japan to, again, make up for the stuff they've lost from China. Then it seemed like any Japanese artist in China had their venue canceled. So there was this Japanese jazz musician, Yoshio Suzuki, and he was setting up his concert. What happened just there? He was setting up for a concert, and then some Chinese state police come in. They talk to the venue owner, and then the venue owner comes over and goes, your concert's canceled. So he's like devastated. And I think it's really because jazz sucks, but that might be a different issue that I have, not necessarily. But this is basically just a reaction. Any Japanese artist, so there's multiple reports have come in that Japanese artists have had their venues canceled, so they can't do any concerts in China anymore. Taiwan then calls for a Japanese travel promotion. China then goes to the UN and says, if Japan attempts an armed intervention in the cross-strait situation, it would be an act of aggression. Now, this is factually correct. If Japan sent military people over to Taiwan, because this is, again, supposed to be the result of China invading Taiwan, trying to take over the government or depose the government of Taiwan, that would be an act of aggression. I actually agree with that. So factually, that's true. But again, it's the underlying of what they're actually saying is like, you've said you do this. If you do this, this is an act of aggression. And then we expect the UN to back us up and not Japan, even though Japan probably has a lot more friends in the UN than China does. So that's where we are now. I actually saw some stuff this morning and it was pandas because China owns all the pandas in the world. All the pandas in the world come from China. And basically, if you have pandas in a zoo, you're either renting or leasing those pandas from China. And they probably stay in your zoo for X amount of years, and then they go back to China. Well, Japan doesn't have any pandas right now, and they wanted pandas in their zoo, and they're not going to get any pandas in their zoo. And that's because China's now saying, no pandas for you. So that's where we are now. And I think this is going to be ongoing because China won't let it go until they get a retraction. And it seems like Takaichi is strong enough that she's not going to retract her statement. And again, I'm really torn because it was a dumb thing to say in the first place. Even if you're talking hypothetically, everyone knew what you were talking about. Everyone knew what you were saying. But she's standing by what she said, which I have a lot of respect for. Since we're talking about Takaichi, I might as well do some of the other stories that came out. Since she's the new prime minister, there's a lot of stories coming out about her every day because she's very interesting, because she's the new thing. She apparently went to the G20 summit and was like, it's really hard to decide what to wear because male politicians, all they do is they put on a suit, navy blue suit, really boring, and they show up in maybe a dark gray suit or something like that. Do you remember Obama? Everyone freaked out because he wore a tan suit. Like, that was the big scandal in the Obama days. She has a similar issue where people are going to judge what she wears very carefully. She has to choose what she wears very carefully. She actually emulates Margaret Thatcher. She's a big fan of Margaret Thatcher. Again, another reason I would dislike her policies because I am the opposite of a Margaret Thatcher kind of person. But she was saying, like, she just chooses really conservative navy blue not pantsuit, but like dress, skirt and jacket combination, stuff like that. So there's a lot of thought has to go into how a female politician dresses when she goes to something like the G20. When the men show up and as long as they put their pants on, they're fine. Turns out that Takaichi only sleeps 2 to 4 hours a night. She tried to have a 3 a.m. staff meeting and all the staff were like, dude, that's insane. Now, this is, again, another bit of criticism. Takaichi's like, I'm going to work myself and I'm going to work my staff to death to make Japan a better country. But one of the biggest problems Japan has is the overwork culture of the working culture in Japan. And a lot of people are like, the whole point is we need people to not go to work as much, not look at this, not make this the priority. But then the conservatives are like, we need to work harder and harder and harder until our heads explode. And Takaichi's 100% on the board. Now, she does go ahead and say, like, I don't expect other people to do this, but I'm doing it. But she's one of those people who's kind of leading by example. Then they came up with an interesting new problem, because the new prime minister is a lady type prime minister, not a male type prime minister like previously. There's a sumo championship called the Prime Minister's Cup. Now, sumo is a very long tradition. It's a very male-dominated situation. It's a male-dominated sport. One of the things that you're not allowed to do is have a ladylike person walk into the sumo ring. If they do that, then they have to resalt the ring to purify it because of the dirty, dirty lady went in there. So women aren't allowed to enter the sacred sumo ring. And so what is the option? So usually the award, the cup, the prize, the stack of money, whatever it is given to the winner in the ring. So some history about this. So women are not allowed to enter the sumo ring. 2 women in the past, cabinet members have asked to present the award to the champion sumo wrestler. This happened in 1990 and in the year 2000. Both times were refused. So they're like, I don't care that you're an important politician. I don't care that you actually represent the prime minister in this case. You are not allowed to walk into the ring, so you cannot give the award. In 2018, a mayor collapsed in the ring during a speech. So a mayor was giving a speech, maybe just fainted. 2 women rushed to give him aid. So maybe nurses, maybe people who knew medical stuff. They rush and they go to get in the ring, and then they were stopped. They're like, we don't care if this dude is dying in the ring right now. You're a woman. You're not allowed to go in the ring, which is ridiculous. Later on, the Sumo Association apologized, said, look, hey, maybe in the case of someone having a heart attack or dying or fainting in the ring, it actually makes sense to maybe bend or allow this time for the women to go in and actually provide assistance to the person who needs medical aid. But in the moment, all the men, like the referee who wears the little hat, he's like, nah, man, you can't come in the ring. I don't care if that guy dies. So what we do know is that the Prime Minister, Takaichi, wishes to preserve sumo tradition. So maybe she could present the awards, probably a big trophy or something, outside of the ring, or send a representative on her behalf. Just so you know, Trump actually presented the championship award in 2019. So he was allowed to go in the ring, even though I would consider him to be a lot more disgusting than Takaichi. So 2 weeks ago, I talked about how Sentai Gyozugure, I'm just going to say Power Rangers, because that's what it is. Power Rangers, after 50 years, is going to go away. Maya Imamori is stepping down before the end of the show, and her agency is terminating her contract. She is 19 years old, and she was caught drinking while under 20. And this is a bog standard corporate apology. Like, we apologize for all the trouble we've caused the fans and the stress and stuff like that. The articles have basically been claiming she's been dating her co-stars and soccer players, and there's been allegations of her cheating and having multiple boyfriends and stuff. And it's really, the story's actually not very good. It really comes down to an interesting thing of how women and men are cheated, some Freud for you, how women and men are treated in Japanese media, because the one that sticks to me in my mind is there's this lady called Becky. She was on every TV show for a while, and she was in commercials. She was huge in Japan. She was kind of like a half Japanese, half something else person. And she started dating a guy who was married, and he was a guitar player. Now, when this came to light, her career ended. Everything went away. But when what happened to his career, the guitar player, he basically disappeared for 2 or 3 months and then came back as if nothing had happened at all. And this is a fairly consistent thing that happens in Japanese culture, media culture, is the way women are treated, because we talk about the idol contracts where they're not allowed to have boyfriends. The last episode, we talked about how this idol was found to have a boyfriend, and then the boyfriend means that she... in the contract, it says you're not allowed to have a boyfriend because they want to keep you like available for the fans. It was one of those things where it's just like so unfair. I actually had a point, I'm sure, when I wrote this note down, but I don't have it anymore. It's gone. Dave getting up and moving is, oh, dude, yucky is not even close. It's just, if you treated both sides the same, I would not have a problem with it. Like, you want to be super conservative, super strict. Absolutely. Dave is too scared. Every time Dave moves, oh no, it's this way. Every time Dave moves over there, I kind of stop my brain and check to see how many times he like turns and stuff. So even he's asleep in his bed, but so even if he's not on screen, he's still on screen. That was on purpose. This is like the only thing I've set up with intent. If you wanted to treat everyone the same, I would be fine with it. So he loses his career, she loses her career, and everyone's treated equally, fine. But it's just because the women are treated so differently than the men. Because there was the guy who, I don't want to start. Exclamation point. Is a little boy band. There was one of the guys got really drunk and took off his clothes and he got arrested. And he lost his deal. And I think that's pretty fair. Like, you go walk around downtown naked, you might not want to be a representative for a lot of companies. I think that's a pretty fair thing. But if he like cheated with a girl, that would not even be noteworthy. And so this is one of the things. This woman, Maya Imamori, she was accused of stuff constantly, stuff that was patently false. She was treated like she was like a home wrecker. She was treated like this, and none of this was true. And she's only like 19 years old. And then they try to find a reason to fire her. I think that's actually more true than anything else, because drinking at 19, yes, it's illegal. Yes, you're not supposed to do it. But the company could have just not said anything. But instead, they just decided to fire her. But I'm betting she's out drinking with her friends because of all the stress caused by all the like false rumors that are being spread around her all the time. Politics, the leader of the NHK party. The NHK party is actually used to be called the anti-NHK party, and it's the anti-NHK party because NHK sucks, which I actually agree with. There was a story, I didn't get time to actually make notes on it. They want to do a streaming service to lock people in. And like, if you don't pay for this service, you don't get this streaming service. I'm like, dude, no one wants your stupid NHK streaming service. But anyways, the leader of the anti-NHK party, which has changed its name to the NHK party, he says a lot of dumb stuff. So it was just a matter of time before he went too far. Like, that is just straight up. He's always pushing boundaries of what's acceptable. He's the one who put up posters in the last election, and he sold the space to like porn stars and all these other people who just wanted to promote their pet, things like that. He was just making a mockery of the whole election system in Japan. Actually, again, not 100% against that, but he also then says stuff. The stuff he says is more and more inflammatory. Well, he did say he was pretty sure one of his political opponents was undergoing police questioning and then scheduled to be arrested. So this is a tough thing to say about a politician, because a politician who's being questioned by the police and a politician who's like scheduled to be arrested, that's a significant claim to make. The police then came out and said, nah, we actually are not doing anything with that guy. We're not even talking to that guy. We're not even thinking about that guy. So the leader of the NHK party went, sorry. The problem is the other politician suffered a whole bunch of online abuse. So his supporters saw these things, they saw the accusations, and they started like attacking him online. Then he died. Now, he didn't, not as a result of this, but maybe the stress from it didn't help. So his widow, though, she got pissed. So she decides to file a defamation claim against the anti-NHK party leader. He told the police. So the police went and talked to him. So all this, like, I think the police are talking to that guy, but then the police actually come to talk to you. That's a bad look. He told the police he had grounds for his comments. But again, the police said, we weren't talking to that guy. We had no interest in that guy. We weren't even thinking about that guy. What were your grounds? He couldn't actually demonstrate any grounds. The widow timed this, so this happened just as he was planning to announce he was going to run to be the mayor of the city of Ito. I think it's in Shizuoka. He was arrested to prevent evidence tampering, and the police called his remarks groundless. 2 weeks later, he then admitted guilt. So this guy who was like ragging on this other politician, saying all this stuff, all that just came back on him. He's actually now going to be arrested. He's going to lose probably his position, his party leadership. He's basically just done himself in by running his mouth. JR East is a train company. So Japan Rail is what JR stands for. There's JR East, JR West. There's a couple other train companies, but they're all companies and they all do the same thing. They run trains. I take the Meitetsu. I don't know if you care about that, but I do take the Meitetsu line when I go into work every day. And the Meitetsu line is famous for having its train cars too hot in the winter and too cold in the summer. They all have their own passes, like train passes, and they're all done with IC cards. And JR East has one called Suica. Now, Suica stands for Super Urban Intelligent Card. So the S Super U Urban I Intelligent CA card, Suica. Suica also means watermelon. So of course they went the most natural way to choose a mascot and chose a penguin. Because if your card is called watermelon, you choose a penguin as the mascot. But they have had this penguin mascot for the last 20 years. And they've decided in 2026, they're going to retire this mascot because they're going to update their system. I think they're going to make it more of an app on a phone, or they're going to make the card just do more stuff. So from 2026, they want to have a new character. It's yet to be designed. And people then lost their minds. Because people who've grown up with a character, especially in Japan, they form a real attachment to that character, and that lasts forever. So people are actually really, really upset that this little penguin character is being retired. They want to make changes to the card to increase cashless payment options. So they basically want to make the card more usable in more places. So the choice is, the way I can see it, is give in and keep the penguin character. I don't know why. Penguins are a good mascot character. I mean, if I was going to choose a mascot of some sort, penguin's pretty good. So there was an online uproar. People are losing their minds. I don't know. I think there are other things you could actually spend your time doing, like making podcasts that no one listens to. There is a Japan adult-oriented site. We've talked about this a bunch of times in the last couple of weeks because a lot of sites in Japan are now fighting back against the monetary censorship presented by credit cards. But another big problem with these sites is when you do art is AI, and AI art is, again, a lot of people don't like it. I am very against AI in general just because it's not doing the things that we were promised it would do. It's doing a bunch of other stuff and wasting my time and taking away stuff from people, talented people, artists and stuff like that. So I'm very anti-AI right now. Not 100% on purpose, but I did not want to get Windows 11. I was looking at getting a new computer because my computer almost died, but instead of getting a new computer, I ended up fixing this one by using Zorin OS, which is a Linux distribution. And Linux has no AI in it right now, and I might just be sticking with it for that reason and that reason alone. I do not need AI asking me stuff. When I was using Windows 10, it popped up, Copilot popped up and said, I've been installed in your computer. And then my first thing was like, hey, I didn't ask. Oh, wait. So Copilot popped up and said like, hey, I've been installed. I'm your new Copilot. You can ask me stuff and I'll help you. And I said, first question, how do I turn you off? I didn't ask for you to be installed on my computer, so I don't want you. And I don't want this to take up any resources on my computer, especially my computer is very old. Copilot then refused to answer that question. It went, we seem to have gotten off on the wrong foot. Let's talk about something else. And I was like, oh, wait, you're on my computer. You're supposed to be my AI. You talk about what I want you to talk about and nothing else. So this whole like, I'm AI, I have my own thought process was completely unacceptable to me because I was just immediately thinking, no, you don't get to decide what we talk about. You don't get to refuse to answer my questions. The whole point of AI is to do the things I want, and what I want is to get rid of you. And so it put the AI in a really interesting position, but it literally just refused to answer or respond, and I had to go online and look up how to get rid of Copilot on my Windows 10. But yes, switch to Linux. That's the answer. There's a site called Fanza. This is the actual original thing. There's a Japanese adult site called Fanza, and it's a lot of art by fans, Fanza. From November 2025, so now, creators can only upload 3 AI-generated posts a month, which I think is a really good idea because it was being flooded. I actually have never checked the site, but this is what the article said. It's been flooded with AI porn art. And they're like, no, we want you to like look at stuff that artists have made with actual care and love in their dirty, dirty way. But it's, if you're going to take the time and make that, they want people to look at that first. Now, AI, they're saying, is not illegitimate. It has its place in the world, but it shouldn't, because it can generate so many images so quickly, you can only upload 3 a month for each account, which I actually think is a really good idea because they're not saying no to AI, but they're saying there has to be a significant limit because otherwise the whole website would just be AI all the time. The current deluge of AI-generated stuff has created a heavy burden on the review process. So basically they're saying we have to check all the art that goes onto the website to make sure it's legal, because even though it is dirty, dirty stuff, it still has to be legal in Japan. Because there's so much generated so quickly with AI, it's too hard for them to actually check it all. So you only get 3 per month per account. And I think that's actually a really good idea. Poke Park Kanto is a new area in Yomiuri Land From February 1st, so in a couple of months, they will have two new areas. And one's the town, so it's the Pokemon town, and the Pokemon forest, where you can then go hunt for Pokemon. And they want to give you the real life trainer experience. So you go into town and you buy some resources and you buy some, I don't know, drinks. I don't actually play Pokemon, so I don't know what you have to buy, but I know you have to go into town and buy stuff, because that's every video game. And then you go out into the field and you get yourself some Pokemon, which just sounds pretty cool because you're doing it live. It's a full trainer experience is what they want to create. But the outside part, so there's in city, out city. Out city is a 500-meter nature trail with hills and tunnels. So to go on the trail, you must be able to climb 110 steps. If you can't, you won't be allowed to enter. So there's a physical fitness element to being able to enter into the field part of Poke Park, which I thought was very interesting and a good idea, because we're going to make you walk half a kilometer and maybe even half a kilometer back. You have to be able to do that. Sometimes you're going to go up hills. Grandparents are going to come with their kids. If they can't do it, we don't need you collapsing 250 meters up this hill. We don't want to be carrying you back. And then if you're under 5, you cannot go into the field part of the Poke Park, which again, I think is a good idea. You don't need kids getting lost, having trouble. This park, being a 500-meter nature trail, is going to be quite long. I'm assuming forest, field, stuff like that. I know it's artificial, but it's really easy to lose the kid out there, and you don't need people collapsing. So there's actually a physical fitness element to the new Pokemon area in this park. Adults is going to cost 7,900 yen. The Elite Trainer Pass is 14,000 yen, which allows access to all areas and souvenirs. And I'm betting I will never go there because I'm not that into Pokemon. And 14,000 yen sounds like a lot of money to go hike. Japan has had its first legal case over an AI-generated image. So police have concluded that the image counts as copyrighted work. So this is a 27-year-old. Oh, wait. So a guy made an image with AI art. So he put in the prompts and he produced the art and they used it somewhere. And this 27-year-old was arrested for copying the AI art generated image and using it as his book cover without permission. So that's the complicated nature. So this one guy made a piece of art using AI. This other guy took that image, but you know that AI, all the elements were taken from other things because that's how AI works. So it's stealing. This guy stole that stolen stuff and then decided, I'll just put that on my book cover. And then he didn't get permission because that's all stolen stuff anyway. So who cares? Well, someone cares because the police are like, no, this is AI art. This is copywritten. Because now there's the criteria, which is the important part. The original AI artist used 20,000 plus instructions to make the original image. So they were using not just like, hey, make a chunk of beef chest character with super big abs and pecs and stuff and make him really sexy and put flames coming up behind him and finish. So, which I probably will do right after this podcast and make that my new profile image. But he was meticulously making it piece by piece. Do it live. I just take off my shirt. It's already done. We don't need AI. So he was doing meticulous. It was like put a bar here and do this and do that and do that. Like again, 20,000 elements to the prompt for the AI to create the image. This actually was a significant amount of work. And that's what the police are saying. Like if you're willing to put in that many prompts, that much detail, because of the level of human input, police say the image is copyright protected. So because the prompt is so detailed, because there's so much thought put into the prompt, it's almost as if the prompt itself is what is copywritten, not the resulting image. Now, I don't like AI, but you could at least see this guy at least put in some work. So if you could prove the AI was just following your prompts and not taking from other sources, which is impossible, I know, that I would be okay with. Like if you could tell the computer, okay, I want you to make a red background and do this and do that. It would be interesting if a prompt that detailed did kick out a different image. I would like to see that. The conclusion then is if there is enough human input, the human aspect of it is copywritten. Now, this has been a huge issue in Japan because all the anime companies are saying like, we don't want AI using our images. Any image that comes out looking like our AI, any AI images that come out looking like our art, that's copywritten, protected, stylized, and things like this. If a human does it, is that okay? It's actually not. So then a computer doing it should not be okay either. This is one of the things they have set up a very interesting precedent of how much work has to be put into something for it to be considered original. But at the same time, we all know that AI is taking whatever it's taking from those prompts, taking it from some other artist, and then using that. So does that other artist not deserve to be compensated or protected in some way? We all know the answer is money.